Hi guys, here from Linz, this beautiful town. It's a very nice town, and you see this big tower. Actually, it has a bit of a corrupt history. You know, the other superstar they had to offer here from the Austrian People's Party, Mr. Grasser, he was unfortunately then doing some corrupt deals to get some institutions to this real estate. Anyhow, that's this kind of fascination with young superstars, which unfortunately the Austrian People's Party has. But we survived somehow, Grasser, and then the damage of the populist Kurz came, and that's one of the issues I would like to address here today. I'm now in Linz, and I will discuss, of course, European Austria. The agenda is very clear: to join NATO, to open up the Austrian economy, and to end this Russian pivot of Austria. We had a very interesting Friday. The Austrian state energy company, the Austrian state energy company was rejecting the Russian asset, Mr. Seele, the discharge. That was one of my better days. I wish him personally not any harm, but he has resulted billions of damages for the Austrian taxpayer. He got millions of revenues for his services for Russia, and he is a Russian asset, and he should not, of course, face legal liabilities. You see, Linz is a very dynamic city. It's now beginning of June, and it's also a very open city, but not really enough European. I will discuss a bit about that one during this beautiful day, and I will call, of course, for the common European labor market, with Ukraine permanently having access to the Austrian and to the EU labor market. A common euro, and everybody from the Balkans already. That's a big injustice. The number of injustices we face in the European dimension is quite extraordinary when you think about it, that I try now to mobilize support for visa liberalization. That was successful, at least the activity, not the result, because of French xenophobia. We still have the mess, and then I try to mobilize support for Ukraine, because Dr. Busek, God bless him, he told me I cannot change Europe alone. I knew that, but you know, I have to find some friends, you know, and I try to mobilize now friendship for Romania and Bulgaria, because it's utterly unfair. 15 years. The EU Commission in Vienna has this event now invited. I was also invited. I think they regretted it, because it's very hard to believe that we are celebrating 15 years of EU membership of Romania and Bulgaria, while we are not able to then say that they should also be in the OECD, and they are not, but that's coming now. They are not in the Eurozone. Bulgaria is packed, and they have the prospect, and Croatia actually will adopt the Euro 2023. Bulgaria, still an open question, while they fulfill all criteria. And Romania, they postponed to 2029 the protectionists and xenophobes and all their apologists of Putin and all these Putinistas. I mean, 2029. The faint-hearted, the ones who not really believe in what we're doing, they have postponed it now for 2029. Okay, and then the Schengen thing, that's far from a decision making. So you cannot believe it, if you would invent it, that they celebrate 15 years, but they are not able to get Schengen for Romania and Bulgaria, and we're talking here about the beautiful year 2022. I'm not making this video 2012. Because some might remember that I was also very much against the 7-year transition period for Romania and Bulgaria. Yeah, look, it's very nice. Money is made, and the city is developing here in Linz as well. Yeah, who is doing the work here? If you ask anybody, it's probably the guys from Romania, Bulgaria, and the Western Balkans, who we treat so shabbily all the time. I guess that is very accurate description of the reality of Linz and of Austria here in year 2022. And I'm heading home because I will go to an interesting event which I will show you during this day, and I will of course promote NATO and EU enlargement, and that is what I will do today. But let me share some of this pain and frustration on this beautiful day here. Energy tower, you know, very big Austrian energy utility. I wanted to propose the privatization. Of course, in reality, the state sector is very strong in OMV, in Evasion, Verbund. They are all state-owned. They have a minimal, some kind of minimal and equity on the private market. And how good that is, you see it now in the case of OMV, because it was the small shareholders' representatives who started this small revolution against Austrian corporate socialism, which the chairman of the People's Party is then defending or criticizing. He says it's a big problem that these energy companies are partly privately owned because he cannot order them what he wants. The guy is not from the Socialist Party, but from the Christian Democratic Party. Yeah? So the problem for them is, hello, I'm in front of this company. It's called Energie Austria, Upper Austria, Energie AG. I was for the privatization of that company already 35 years ago. You cannot believe that. 35 years ago, I was 18 or so. And then they told me that this will be partly privatized. Yeah? Very good idea, should have been done, but was not done. And now, I have to be careful crossing the street. And now to continue, yeah, here of course the Chamber of the Workers in Austria is everything very cooperatistic organized. So every kind of profession has its own representative body. That's inherited from our proto-fascist system of the 1920s and 30s. So the Chamber of Workers, the Chamber and the Chamber of Commerce is normal, every country has it, but explained it's an obligatory membership in the Workers' Chamber, in the Business Chamber, in the Farmers' Chamber. We have obligatory membership because everybody has to be either a farmer or a worker or a businessman. Then he is represented by his institution, and that's how this country works on proto-fascist kind of representative of classes, of whatever classes is probably not the right word, but of business activity which are defining your existence. You are either a businessman or you are a worker or a farmer, according to or you are one of the specified professions which also have their own chambers. A lawyer, a pharmacist, a notary or an engineer. So if you're not in a chamber, you're not existing, because the concept of citizenship and taxpayers and the citizen kind of based system is not what we are believing in. You're defined by your activity and you are represented by your activity in chambers. That's the Austrian system. Anyhow, so OMV, this not discharging, that was really very good. I was really extremely happy with this progress in transparency, and I thought that this is something the world needs to know. I will also today make some activity for NATO membership, because obviously that's the one leverage which there is to change Austria. There's not so many, because then all these Austrian identity issues, the problems of our own kind of insecurity, what we are, is addressed, and that we need to address in order to overcome these big problems which we face in our geostrategic orientation. Why our elite thinks it's a cool thing to do, to make business with war criminals and to work alongside such absolutely undefendable, anti-European and ultimately completely crazy foreign policy directions, energy policy, trade policy, because also all this is a consequence. It's not they have started with their energy or trade or transport policy. No, that's all a result of the very failed geostrategic positioning of a country, which again is a result of a misunderstanding what happened in the Second World War, who won it especially, of an overestimation of Soviet power, of a underestimation of American economic material support for the Soviet Union. It is a kind of misunderstanding of what neutrality meant and why we got it. It is a policy based on fear of Russia, of overestimation of Soviet and Russian power, and all these policies together then lead to a rejection of American-led world, because they hated for the left and the right, and they were never denazified. That's now a very bad word, but I mean it in the real sense of the 1945 concept, because that is what we didn't do after the Second World War, and that's why we face so many problems here. Yeah, this is Linz, very beautiful. It's a typical town of 200,000. What it misses, of course, is the underground. That's the only small piece of small underground. I walk now to my flat, and what it misses, of course, is people. Because the lack of labor supply in the last years and the xenophobic closing off of the Balkan markets and of the not accepting the Ukraine opportunity has led to a dramatic lack of skilled labor in Upper Austria, and the businesses, which are of course quite good companies, they are hurting. They are hurting, and it's no longer so innovative, because we are basically cut off the labor supply, because we opted for xenophobic nationalism and protectionism, because we have very insecure the problem of the second generation or third generation of power transition, which is now happening in Upper Austria and now in Steiermark as well. They have basically the personalities. They have always been only in youth politics, and they lack the international exposure, and so they have the ideological framework, and then they're just repeating their views which they always held in youth politics, where I was also active, and then we are in a complete mess ideologically. And then of course they're repeating all the same dogmas of the past, and then the best example was, for example, Sebastian Kurz trying to copy Bruno Kreisky. That was absolutely crazy, and that was unbelievable things. Because of the lack of their own ideological or value base, they have then started to repeat some nonsense. And that was exactly, nobody who is a modern, even doesn't matter, Social Democrats, Christian Democrats, but Bruno Kreisky, he was the personification of neutralism, of anti-Americanism, of socialist economics, and of Russian appeasement. That's all totally wrong. Okay, he was 13 years in power, and he was a funny character, and he had made many achievements also. There's no doubt about it. It's a historic personality, but you cannot admire him as a Christian Democrat or conservative or liberal or any modern European personality. It's the same with Willy Brandt. What the Social Democrats in Germany do is completely out of the context. I mean, he had to resign because his best assistant was an Eastern German spy. Yes, and there was a reason why. And he was creating so much mess for the Americans. And of course, when you are anti-American, that makes a lot of sense, because when you believe in American world is very dangerous, and they are the imperialists and the capitalism is bad, then of course you have to love Willy Brandt and Bruno Kreisky. But how can anybody of today's young leaders have such views. I mean, that's completely crazy. And then they forget that there were also good ideas of openness, like for example in the labor market. But that they are not ready, because in their insecurity they are obviously xenophobes. And that's what they are. Yes, that's the situation. Now, my little morning rant here from Linz. I will continue now onwards to show you another city, but it's a nice place actually, yeah? One of the schools. This, you see, the poorer part of the city where I grew up. It's a typical socialist legacy. They don't clean up. The inner city is basically a transit area towards the richer suburbs where the rich people live. And then, of course, you have a lot of unregulated immigration, because immigration should be regulated, like everything, and welcome. And then you have, of course, a market order, and you have much better results if you do it decently, and you have a welcoming culture where they are basically having the entrepreneurship and business opportunities well regulated. Yes, that's what I say, well regulated. I'm very much for the free market, but of course it must be organized like the whole society and like the market and like the capitalism. Now actually it's a lot of more investment coming, that's very good, and also Linz is booming, but we could be much better with more openness, but openness based on a decent European regulatory approach. And unfortunately our concept is more high taxation, high regulation, and of course xenophobia and protectionism. This kind of approach doesn't work in the freedom of the real markets. Then you get a lot of informality because of tax evasion and because of regulation evasion. And you get, of course, a lot of unhappy people because they cannot keep the rules, and then they can stay outside of the rule-based economy. That's the phenomenon called informality, because if you basically make a formality so expensive and so complicated that then the people have to evade it because compliance is too high, and in their countries they are not used to such high level of compliance, then you see the situation is getting into evasion and into very big complicated factors, and you have a lot of negative phenomena which are then associated with migration. But they are not necessarily and not at all the consequence of migration, but they are the consequence of no welcoming culture, no kind of systematic support, and also leading then a highly level of regulation, high taxation, which leads then to major informality, because the evasion is the only way. Here's a new building. So also this poorer part of Linz is developing gradually because the whole Europe is lifted because we did enlargement in 2004. That's the historic project. I'm very happy as a student representative, and in my time when I was serving loyally the SME union of the EPP in the times from, I started in 96 as student chairman, and in 2004 and all the years before and after I was a loyal supporter of enlargement, and I could contribute to that historic task of 2004 to 2013, and it's one of my motivations, my campaign for the next enlargement, because I hate the protectionist, xenophobes, enlargement fatigues, pro-Russian Putinists, the ones who create informality and shabbiness, the ones who let cities fail and leave them in that kind of conditions, the ones who protect us from the things we don't want to be protected, like for example free trade with South America or Indonesia or Africa. They protect us from the prosperity this would bring, and then they serve their master Putin, who pays them, and with the votes of the Western Christian Democrats, then the few elites manipulate the situation based on claiming they protect us, and they keep the situation in poverty, and they create this informality, and then they claim they have to protect us from whatever. From Russia they certainly do not protect us, because as in the past in the World War I, as in the World War II, as in the Cold War, and ever since, it's only America and American capitalism, leadership and market economy, where also many things can be criticized, yeah? But it's ultimately an American-backed world order, the NATO world order, which is keeping us secure and everybody inside secure, and security is the basis for prosperity, because without it there is no way for investment, there is no way for security in terms of that you know what you can do with your time and your money, and you can plan and make long-term plans. In insecurity, obviously you cannot do that. And of course also in America not everything is perfect. I'm far from claiming that, and I can make many videos on request on that one. But I can assure you that this American-backed world order is the key, and America made many mistakes in the history. I don't say that this is, it's not flawless. I'm now reading this book about Roosevelt giving in Yalta and Tehran so much, and continuing the Land-Lease support for Stalin and all the tragedy which has resulted in leaving so much of Eastern Europe to the Soviets. Poland, the Baltics, was high treason. And of course also from Hungary, Central Europe, Czechoslovakia, and all these great places in the Balkans left to rot under communism for so long. And it was a complete disaster. Anyhow, I will keep on the narrative and explain you everything about Austria. Today will be an interesting day. Stay with me here at Pax Europiana, this Austrian leg of my tour, and sharing some of my views. And please decarbonize. I was raised in this city. There was a lot of petrol-powered cars. I'm very much for decarbonization, believe me. And let's only have electromobility. Let's have more public transport. And please, let's have no Russian energy in Europe, no Russian uranium, no Russian coal, no Russian gas. And let's do that as fast as possible. And it's possible very fast. It's time for a 7th sanction package to end gas and end uranium now in June 2022. We should have done it 2002 actually. Anyhow, more to come from Pax Europiana. Thanks a lot for listening. More to come from Linz. Bye.